plants. It is an interrelationship of plants and animals, rather than just animals in, for example, a cage, which I could refer to putting an animal into a home that's like a person's home, whereas animal needs are quite different, and animals' homes need to be furnished with the things they would find in their natural homes.
And we're trying here to do that neat integrated approach, which says that plants depend upon land, rocks are a part of it, water is a vital element.
We have to protect the planet, and we want to protect the planet, and there's all sorts of exciting things in the world that we shouldn't let go extinct or into oblivion.
There's no doubt at all in my mind that this is going to be one of the finest zoos in the world.
Now it's here, it's becoming a true reality.
These sponsors are proud to bring you Where in the World? Building a New Home, the first program in a three-part series on the Minnesota Zoological Garden. International Dairy Queen, the exclusive food distributor at the Minnesota Zoological Garden, the Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and F&M Savings Bank. F&M, with over a century of pioneering ways to make your banking easier and your savings thriftier. For the kind of help that really counts, trust F&M.
Dorothy Benham was some of my new family, the F&M people who are always coming up with new ways to make your banking easier and your savings thriftier. With F&M services like telephone banking that lets you pay bills, make deposits, pay yourself, even make loans, all by phone from home. Pay by phone savings, still another way F&M makes your money work harder and earn more. For the kind of help that really counts, trust F&M.
We're building a new home here, a special home with very unusual qualities. Take the size, for example, almost 500 acres. That's roughly the amount of land covered by 100 city blocks. And consider the landscaping, everything from rolling hills and lush valleys to running streams, majestic oak forests, unspoiled marshlands, and 11 separate natural lakes. Sounds immense, doesn't it? But then we're building for a very large and unique family. Its members, well, they come from as near as our own backyard, as far away as the Russian steppes and the Asian rainforests. And they're arriving in groups, in herds actually, 250 species, over 1,500 strong. They'll be the animal population of a unique concept in zoos. A new zoo where we'll experience the wildness of nature in the midst of their home, in their world, where the animals can study us even as we study them. And where in the world will this new home be? Right here in Minnesota.
Back in the beginning was really examine what a zoological garden was, what it should be, how it should relate to the visiting public. We came upon some very interesting thoughts, and I think perhaps predominant there was this thought that a zoological garden was a family-oriented institution. If you think about the people that come to a zoo, you see large extended family groups of maybe a 2-year-old all the way down to an older grandparent. And the experience that they have when they come to a zoo is one which is equal for all age groups. The young child enjoys the animals, the grandparent enjoys the animals in much the same way, but with their framework. And this is a very interesting thing in our society. There are few total family facilities. And of course, the big thing is the problem of relating to people and talking about the environment. We don't see the Minnesota Zoological Garden as a place where you go and look at animals. To plants, to rocks. We are quite hopeful that a solar energy plant is going to be developed. And we're talking about energy conservation, about habitat preservation. So the animal is a part of the zoo, but also the plants, the rocks, the energy, and so forth. So it's an environmental learning experience. And what we're hoping is that when the individual comes, they leave later with an idea or a feeling about habitat, a feeling about what they can do, perhaps just simply thinking about their concerns. And this is the real objective of any modern zoological garden, is to accomplish this end. Besides, it's a fun place to visit. We looked at some other things, such as what kind of animals are we going to have here, because that is important, and decided that basically what we wanted to do was go with the climate. Let's exhibit some of those animals that no one sees ordinarily in a zoo. And here we've got musk oxen, Siberian tigers. We have the Bactrian camels from the cold deserts of inner Asia. These kinds of things which normally are not seen in zoos. We talked about emphasizing 1 or 2 species of animals that were truly in danger of extinction. And we're going to emphasize a couple of those. We're looking at the Mongolian wild horse, the last wild horse that exists in the world. There are few in zoos, there are none in the wild, and we're going to conduct a rather heavy breeding program. The Siberian tiger is another example. If we look at what's left of them in the wild, maybe 40, 50 breeding pairs still in existence, while in zoos something over 300 animals exist. So we are making a major gene pool contribution there. And the real hope is that if in the next decade or 2 decades the Siberian tiger actually ceases to exist, at least our children and our grandchildren can see a Siberian tiger in the flesh and not have to depend on the museum, not have to depend on the picture in the encyclopedia or the animal book.
But how to meet the environmental needs of the animals, yet satisfy the needs of human visitors? Well, zoo officials decided to find animals that could survive and even thrive in the climate Minnesota offered, leaving the animals to run relatively free and, in effect, caging the human visitors instead. Well, the plan involved numerous considerations. The Siberian tiger alone required skilled preparation.
For example, the moat design on the Siberian tiger required a variety of inputs. The architect in terms of retaining walls, the hydrologist, and the engineer in terms of the drainage and the water source, and the specific program criteria of the ability of the tiger to jump distances up to 30 and more feet had to be taken into account in order to make this exhibit safe and contain the animal. In the redesign or in the further development of the exhibit, we came to a design of a water moat which brings the animal far closer to the viewer and in more direct contact with the visitor.
As the problems were ironed out, the northern trek began to emerge. In this plan, the visitor has the option of riding a monorail, the zoo ride around the trek, seeing the animals from on high, or hiking the trail, getting a closer look.
One begins by going through northern Europe, looking at the Saiga antelope, moving on into Siberia in the steppe landscape, the grasslands, the horse-camel areas, and on into then going closer to the Bering Straits, where the wolf and reindeer will be located, looking at also the polar bear in those areas, and the fox and various animals of the Arctic areas. Moving into the muskox as one crosses the Bering Straits into the North American continent. And finally, going down to the Rockies, we move through the display of mountain goats, on through grizzly bear, past moose in Canada and northern Minnesota, and finally back then on the finishing the trek into Minnesota.
To present animals native to our own state, the designers came up with this: a walkway fashioned as a stream bed with the Minnesota habitat recreated along the banks. By this device, the visitor gets a truer sense of being in the wilderness, experiencing the animals firsthand.
Well, very early in the design process, when it was first suggested that we have a Minnesota exhibit, the first reaction was, why have a Minnesota exhibit? Everyone knows these animals. They'd rather have lions and tigers and zebras and giraffes. But the truth is that very few people have seen these animals. How many people have actually seen a wolverine in the wild, or a lynx, or even a beaver? So what we were charged to do was build a Minnesota exhibit that would represent these animals as best we could in their natural habitat.
We're also looking at things like the small shrews that maybe only 10% of the people in the state may ever see. And we're putting these on exhibit, talking about what it means when a grass fire or a brush fire goes through an area. You know, it doesn't just destroy the birds up in the trees. There are many little secretive animals on the ground, from even invertebrates on up, that are pressed out of existence.
Through this closer contact with our own native environment, we can attain a greater understanding, a greater sympathy for all the inhabitants of our Minnesota, of our world. We can come as a family to visit another family and leave richer for the experience.
One of the things that we're most interested in is the children's zoo. The fact that this is a place where children and adults and domestic animals can have an intimate interaction. Children will be allowed to pet and feed animals. They'll see milking demonstrations, sheep shearing. They'll get a chance to look into a honeybee colony and watch the bees come and go. They'll see walking sticks and reptiles and amphibians. They'll learn a little bit about pet care with some small semi-domestic birds that breed in captivity and are frequently kept as pets. They're going to have a chance to get to know ponies, and we're going to have pony carts, and the kids can even have a ride with pony pulling the cart and so forth. It's a place in the zoo where we hope to build an understanding of our need for living things, how we depend upon animals, for example, for food and clothing, transportation, as beasts of burdens, and even as companions, with dogs and cats and parakeets and so forth. And then we do get the chance to show city children where eggs really come from, and where milk really comes from, and all of those things that we take for granted, but a lot of children growing up today may never have had a real experience at a farm. And so a lot of these activities will be ongoing demonstrations in the children's zoo.
And where there are children, can the monkey exhibit be far behind? This will be the home of the Japanese macaque, the living exception to the notion that monkeys are just tropical animals. For the Japanese macaque is the snow monkey. He's native to the northernmost islands of Japan. Living further north than any other primate but man, the Japanese macaque should find the Minnesota climate comfortable all year round. Snow monkeys will let us see firsthand how they go through their complex social interactions in their own world, in their own time. The lush tropical rainforest, teeming with plant and animal life, awash in brilliant sunlight. It's an exotic adventure that most Minnesotans have never experienced. But all that will soon change, for this magnificent jungle is an integral part of the Minnesota Zoological Garden. Encased in a skylighted structure with the climate control of a giant greenhouse, the jungle covers 1.5 acres. Crisscrossed with pedestrian pathways at various levels, the visitor is suddenly alone. Alone to catch the suggestion of beautiful coloration through the tree. The soaring of free-flying birds, the skittering of tiny animals through the underbrush, the wildness of the sloth and tapir and leopard. Move on to the nocturnal area where the night animals are king in the artificial moonlight. Continue on to find butterflies and flamingos and dolphins. Animal and plant life abound, for you are in their world. The construction process was a marvel of ingenuity, with the object to bring the visitor right into the animal's home. There was meticulous reconstruction of limestone rock cliffs taken from molds cast along the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers. Great care to preserve natural barriers. Attention given to such details as the size of cave openings and the need for running water. For example, watch this exchange between Brad House and Julian George.
Now your tree, we're going to put a huge fallen tree in here that'll be about 5 feet in girth. Now, you wanted me to put it right at an angle about like this, across here?
Yeah.
Now, the reason we have to go to a concrete tree is because they would completely demolish the entire tree over several years.
Yes, and then it would also pose a sanitation problem because we have to keep it clean, and that wood would remain wet and be a perfect bacterial culture.
Very good. Now, how about the opening, Brad, on the cave? You were telling me that you were worried about wearing the hair off of their body so that if it's too narrow.
That's perfectly adequate. Now,
that's okay.
Yeah,
it's not too narrow.
No, it's just right.
All right, good, great. Well,
and you know, an added thing behind this is all going to be bamboo,
Oh, okay.
big bamboo.
I see.
And there's going to be a constant fall of the yellow slender leaves.
Uh-huh.
And that's going to be drift in here in areas, and it's just going to be a beautiful final touch.
You mean they'll clutter the floor?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It'll just be beautiful.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, now, you're telling me that the bears will climb up our tree.
Yes.
Now, you're not too, the little ones will.
Yes.
Now, you're not too worried if I get it pretty high?
No, it can't be, as long as we don't get close to the wall where they can bridge across.
Okay. About, say, this high, huh?
Oh, you can go
even higher.
if a snag or something like that.
About that high.
The cubs will love that.
Just imagine a jungle in Minnesota.
And yet our visit is not complete without moving to the cold waters of the Arctic, the domain of the mighty beluga whales. For the belugas have come to symbolize the very spirit of the new zoo, as thousands of Minnesotans, especially the children, walked to bring the whales to their new home. The story of the belugas was of, by, and for Minnesota, a true family effort.
Really. We aren't going to have any elephants. We're going to have here behind me the beluga whales and an aquarium. And we're actually talking here about the largest representatives of the largest mammals that exist. And this is our answer to the elephant in this case. Very exciting kind of exhibit.
Delphinapterus lucus, the beluga whale, the white whale, native to the Arctic regions of North America and Eurasia. The beluga measures 12 to 15 feet and weighs about 100 pounds per foot at maturity. Air-breathing, intelligent, and social, the beluga is closely related to the porpoise or dolphin and to seals. Like its relatives, it readily adjusts to contact with humans, thriving on daily activity. A spectacular performer, the beluga utilizes echolocation, a sort of animal sonar, to see by bouncing sound waves off of an object rather than seeing it only with its eyes. Experiments have shown that the beluga whale can discriminate color and can emit a range of sounds from foghorn-like through squeaks and on to frequencies well above the range of human hearing. Delphinapterus lucus, the designated superstar of the Minnesota Zoological Garden. There is, however, a small problem. The white whale does not customarily reside in Apple Valley. It spends its summers in the land of the midnight sun. It is shortly after an early August dawn in Churchill, Manitoba. If Churchill had a rooster, it would have just finished crowing. As it is, the air is filled with the sounds of outboard motors and sleepy men getting into boats. Quite a few men and quite a few boats for one whale. Now it seems that circumstances have reduced the zoo's whale shopping list from 4 belugas to 1. The original plan was to capture 4, but a revised plan was made to go after 2 this year and to return for the other 2 next year. The logistics of transporting and handling 4 whales seemed a bit risky for an organization just getting into business. So a goal of 2 belugas, 1 male and 1 female, was set. When the MZG party arrived in Churchill, it met a capture expedition from the United States Navy just packing up to leave. They had come after 3 belugas and had captured 4. Requiring smaller specimens, they chose the 3 smallest and left an 11-foot, 3-inch, 1,100-pound male in the holding tank. A fine specimen, lively, pure white, healthy, fearful only of killer whales, polar bears, and Eskimos. A great mammal for exhibition, except, well, you see, the MZG whale capture expedition had come all the way to Churchill to capture whales. And now its shopping list was probably down to only 1. But the chase is on. The idea is to locate a pod of whales with a chase boat, separate the whale of your choice from the rest, herd it towards shallow water, 3 to 4 feet is ideal, and draw the boat alongside the mammal as it surfaces to breed. According to the plan, the jumper, standing at the front of the boat and directing the pursuit, jumps into the water and onto the whale, slipping a rope loop around the mammal's head and upper body. The scenario then calls for a backup jumper to dive in to slip a second rope around the whale tail to immobilize it. The next step calls for a transport boat to slowly and carefully carry the beluga and the victorious whale capture party back to shore. The problem is, the whale didn't read the script. The script calls for a female beluga in the starring role. The speculation of one boat driver on the night before the chase was that a single whale could be captured in 90 minutes if it weren't for the need for everyone to get a lot of pictures. That prediction was born in a mist of Canadian whiskey and died in a mist of Churchill River water, kicked up by outboards, churning, reversing, blasting forward again in pursuit of one whale out of the thousands. The whale just didn't read the script. The man at the center of the activity is John Hicks, the leader of the Churchill Whaling Cooperative. Half Eskimo and half Scottish, Hicks, like his father before him, was a commercial whaler at the Churchill Whaling Station. When the killing of belugas for commercial purposes was ended in Canada, the old whaling station was burned to the ground. The man who held the torch was John Hicks. Asked why modern search and capture techniques are not employed, Hicks reflects a concern for values of far greater importance than the speed of the operation.
I think it goes back to heritage. We're all ex-commercial whalers, or our fathers had been commercial whalers, and there is still a form of tradition where we try to capture in our own method and our own way, and we still, in turn, retain our instincts that we had. And if you modernize, you could use a seine net, or you can use hoops. It becomes too slick and it becomes commercialized. And one of the things you can have problems with anything mechanical device that you have. If you have some problems, you're going to injure the mammal. And in our way, we jump the mammal clean. And if you miss, the mammal's free. If you get the whale, then you hold him with only a rope. And consequently, this way, the only injuries that ever incur are to our staff more than the whales.
This morning, fewer boats take to the water. Some press and zoo people watch the chase from the shore instead of from the boats. The best drivers are assigned to the chase boats, and they are at it again.
Swing 'em. Good for you, John. I got this guy in front of me.
On shore, in the holding tank, the Navy surplus whale is getting lonesome. While he prefers the company of his 3 departed friends, a friendly human hand offering a dead fish is a social attraction, if not an appetizing one. Wild animals must learn to eat offered food, and belugas in the wild eat live fish, not dead ones, thank you. The third day of hunting is serious work. Time is becoming a factor. The exodus of belugas from the Churchill area usually begins around August 10th. 2 days to go. 1 female whale to catch. Gone are any notions about a 90-minute capture. Brad House, capture expedition leader and MZG associate director, sees no cause for alarm.
Not discouraged. This is, I think it's gone very well. We've tried to catch whales and haven't caught one yet. Well, not one that's acceptable, but we will.
Suddenly, a pair of chase boats spots a small pod of whales, headed for the shallows.
Jump on him! Jump on him, Johnny! You can't tell by look at him! I can't do nothing.
Number 1 jumps.
Get after him. Chase him, chase him, chase him.
Number 2 jumps.
Watch that rock there, you're on top of the rock. Watch another one. Right here. I got no rope! Come on, come on! Fix him!
The odds are now on MZG's side.
Female? Okay. Did you? No, I talked, I did, but I can't tell the right.
The sexing procedure is quickly done. A male. Then,
Before we got here, what did you get? Yes, sir.
female. The decision is made to transport both whales back to shore in case the newly captured male is a better specimen than the veteran back in the tank.
Whoa, that's a female? Come on. This is neat. Where'd you find that, Alan? Whoa. There's no camera. Not too long? One. Okay, where's the head? Two and a foot. 10.5 feet. 10 foot 6 inches. 9 6. Actually, all they need. Come on, we gotta make the bank. Pay 8 today on the head to make the bank. This is a big mother. It's bigger than it. Forward. Let it roll right over. Let it roll. Roll right over. Come on, right over. See? Still not a good for you guys. Don't go away, boat. Don't go away, boat. Stop there.
As the long, slow trip is made back to shore, the other boats race ahead to pass the word. Capture complete. A female and a choice of males. Now the back-wrenching task of carrying the stretcher-borne whales from the shore, up the rocky beach, through the gate, and into the holding tank. 1,000 pounds of wet whale and canvas going uphill over rocks after hours in the boats isn't considered a fun afternoon, even in Churchill. Gently, the precious cargo is slipped into the tank, with zoo vets carefully watching the stressed animals for danger signals. 2 frightened whales, 1 freshly confused whale, and a jubilant crew of whale watchers. The hero of the day is a local jumper whose nickname to all is Run Amok.
Come out a couple of times, I figured maybe we were going to lose them when they split up. Then they went back together again. It started going towards shore, then we knew we had them, and we were going to go to that grassy ground over there, shallow water. And if they cooperate good, keep on going, then more or less you got them beat, more or less.
It looks like, after a while, I mean, you can chase them around in a boat and you can move them into shore, but at some point, doesn't it just turn out to be you and the whale?
I had a little shiner from one last week.
He got you in the eye?
Yeah, he got me in the eye with his tail. The ribs were a little sore. Couldn't move around next morning.
Are you still nervous when you go in for those things?
No.
Were you the first time?
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't know what the whale was going to do when I jumped in. See, it was just my first time.
And now?
Now I'm a little more confident in myself.
The next morning has been set aside for blood testing of the whales in the tank, in addition to more complete physical examinations to help determine which male will be kept and which will be allowed to escape to Hudson Bay. The exam begins, and soon word spreads throughout the whaling station. The female is a male. The quick sexing procedure in the water of a squirming, frightened 1,000-pound mammal resulted in an error. There are now 3 males in captivity, and tomorrow marks the day when the belugas generally leave the Churchill area. There is now the serious possibility that the Minnesota Zoological Garden will leave Canada and return home with no whales. The nature of belugas is such that it is not considered advisable to put one male into a 560,000-gallon aquarium for 1 year and then introduce 3 smaller females into the same territory. The normally social and gregarious beluga male might develop a less social attitude after a year of isolation. The wiser course would be to release all 3 males and go home empty-handed. This would leave a very large, empty reflecting pool and the lingering memory of a media disaster. Another day of futile hunting, with less favorable weather forecast for the next 2 days. August 10th arrives. The river and bay area, filled with pods of whales easily seen by the unaided eye 3 days before, seem empty of the telltale white flashes. A close call, another male captured. Same story. Turn him loose. Day 6, August 11th. Crews are getting hard to come by as the whale co-op people are needed at their full-time jobs in town. So now it's out at dawn in order to get back to work in the morning. No whales in sight. There is no resemblance to the carnival atmosphere of the first day. These are grim men who are facing their first defaulted capture contract after a string of over 30 successes. 24 Yankees in town to watch the Indians and the Eskimos catch 1 female whale, and in 5 days they have come up empty. Pride takes many forms, and right now it is hovering over the gracefully arching back of a young gray beluga whale streaking for Hudson Bay. The pause, the jump, got him, her. It's got to be a her. That's in the water. It is a her. Slowly, carefully back into shore. 1 young female beluga squeaking and fussing all the way. Run Amok's revenge.
Okay, somebody over there. Left! Hey! What's happening?
The water level lowered once again for blood testing in the tank, and this time all is well. 1 male beluga is immediately released due to behavioral irregularities, which might be the sign of a diseased or ill mammal. Another excused due to an ample middle, which had earned him the nickname Old Blubberbelly. Someone has taken time to notice that Old Blubberbelly, when last seen, headed at cruising speed for the Arctic. was the last beluga whale seen in Hudson Bay during the expedition. Now, time at last for the MZG people to take up their telescopes and do some serious bird watching. The zoo people scan the sky for birds while waiting for their chartered jet airliner to be made available to them. The next tricky problem is to lift the whales in their traveling stretchers, the deluxe custom-made model, onto a flatbed truck for the trip to the airport. On the truck are the whale boxes, made with great care and pride some weeks before at MZG and painted zoo blue. Although the transfer techniques are routine, everyone watching feels the same icy chill as a fleeting thought of a mishap goes through their mind. 1/2 ton of whale 20 feet in the air, held by a stout stretcher, lifted by a truck-mounted industrial crane. When both belugas are safely on the truck, a kind of mass sigh of relief is felt, not heard.
The animals will be riding on a very, very soft foam rubber, which is absorbent for water, so that there'll be water underneath the animal, sort of as they momentarily move up and down with the flight, that will circulate underneath the animal. A second thing we're concerned about is to make sure that the entire body of the animal has some water over that, and we have special types of cloth we lay over the animal that is absorbent for the water to maintain the water in contact with the skin. And thirdly, we're concerned with temperature of the animal during transport, and for that we have ice.
The flight home proves to be an interesting contrast in beluga behavior. She rides quietly, very quietly for a normally talkative mammal. He, the original Navy whale, normally the quiet type, fusses and fumes and thrashes over most of Manitoba, a bit of Ontario, and a good portion of Minnesota. A single tantrum covering 2 provinces and 1 state. A whale-sized fear of flying. The arrival of the belugas continues to be big media business at Twin Cities International Airport, as extensive press coverage, a small crowd of spectators, zoo party families, and a throng of airport employees appear to greet the whale plane. The Canadian airline crew, used to landing on gravel runways near towns with populations measured in the hundreds, is greeted by hundreds of people, 3 airport police squad cars, several zoo trucks, and an airport fire vehicle. The flight home will probably be a bit anticlimactic. As the whales are loaded onto the zoo trucks for the slow, careful drive to their new home, one seizes on the image of a noble animal finding a new home, lovingly created by hundreds of thousands of citizens, taxpayers, volunteers, and whale walk veterans who eagerly await their opportunity to see close up this wonderful creature of the deep north. The belugas are currently undergoing further testing and training and are still in the holding tank in preparation for their final move to their new home. Also, the raven, moose, and ferret badger are now at the zoo awaiting the completion of their living quarters. The others will be arriving soon, and WCCO television will be on hand for their arrival.
We're going to see a lot of these dreams and a lot of these ideas really at work, and that's exciting. I think it's basically what the state legislature had in mind when they supported and gave us the opportunity to go ahead with this. It really is a project of the people. Every citizen in Minnesota has had a part in it, and the expressions of interest have been coming in. And what we're really interested in doing is opening that zoo in May of 1978 and really extending an invitation to 3.8 million Minnesotans to come and visit and be a part of this facility, which is theirs.
It's a time of great anticipation, for we know that our new zoo has the capability of becoming everything a modern zoo can and should be. And that concept is changing too. We're beginning to truly understand the interdependence of all living creatures on this earth. The loss of one species affects us all. We must no longer see the sign of the Siberian tiger cage of one American zoo, Siberian tiger, usefulness, pelts for decorative purposes. As Don Bridgewater pointed out minutes ago, our zoo will work to prevent the extinction of this very species. The Siberian tiger and all living creatures have a right to exist which is quite apart from what we perceive as its usefulness to man. Our new zoo will make the health, the safety, and the welfare of each animal of primary importance. It's impossible to teach the beauty, the grace, the dignity, the value of all living creatures in any other way. William Beebe, back in 1906, commented, "When the last individual of a race of living things breathes no more, another heaven and another earth must pass before such a one can be again. We must be stewards of this earth and of its creatures." We feel a deep sense of gratitude to the thousands whose persistence and patience brought this dream to fruition, and a sense of joyful anticipation that our zoo will be spoken of round the world as one which led the way. In part 2 of our special presentation to air this winter, we'll focus on the support services available to meet the animals' needs. We'll find out about veterinary services, food preparation, and special programs for the animals. Part 3, to air in the early spring, will be the triumphant arrival of the new residents just prior to the grand opening of our new zoo.
These sponsors are proud to have brought you Where in the World? Building a New Home. The Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company of Minneapolis and St. Paul. International Dairy Queen, the exclusive food distributor at the Minnesota Zoological Garden. And F&M Savings Bank. F&M, with over a century of pioneering ways to make your banking easier and your savings thriftier. For the kind of help that really counts, trust F&M.
I'm Dorothy Benham, and it's great being back home and representing F&M Savings Bank and learning about some of the many new services that F&M has created to make banking easier and savings thriftier. If you think that pay-by-phone savings is a big customer help, you should know about some of the other services F&M has created to make your money work harder and earn more. For the kind of help that really counts, trust F&M.